Mr. LaTurner,
Thank you, Mr.
you're recognized, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today, Secretary Blinken. I'm sure you're aware of the growing problem throughout Southeast Asia of scam compounds, often run by Chinese organized crime groups that are targeting more and more Americans every year. These fraud factories, which are increasingly prevalent in Burma, Cambodia, Thailand, can contain thousands of individuals who are trafficked, held against their will inside these compounds, and then forced to help perpetrate online scams referred to as pig butchering, where they develop a relationship with their victim and then push them into investing in fraudulent cryptocurrency apps or platforms. A recent estimate found that global losses from this type of activity have exceeded $64 billion. Can you share what the State Department is doing to combat not just this ongoing fraud, but also the human trafficking that contributes to it?
Thank you, and thank you for putting a spotlight on that, because it's something that is of deep concern to us. We have a comprehensive whole-of-government effort to combat trafficking persons and to combat different manifestations of that, including these scam factories. Literally, and this is something that the State Department helps lead, we have every relevant department in the government coming together, using its resources and doing it in a coordinated way to combat trafficking and to combat these different manifestations of it. And there are significant resources that go into that. There is a very significant effort to help countries develop the capacity themselves to push back against trafficking, to bring traffickers to justice, to help the victims of trafficking. And so building their capacity is critical. Law enforcement collaboration and cooperation is vital to this. Sharing information, of course, we have an annual trafficking in persons report that we put out that looks at countries, country by country, to see what they're doing or not doing, and what more needs to be done to get at the heart of this. But there's a very significant effort underway to deal with that.
Are you seeing the needle move on this particular issue?
We see it move in individual countries. I think, you know, there are a number of countries, and the report makes this clear, where we've seen genuine, effective progress. There are other countries where we've seen backsliding or no progress, and the report lays all of this out.
Right. Recently, Amnesty International in Nigeria stated that over 1,300 people have been killed just in Plateau State alone since December, when the horrible Christmas massacres killed over 200 people, mostly Christians. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, in its recently released annual report, noted a study saying over 8,000 Christians have been targeted and murdered for their faith in Nigeria, most of them in the North and Middle Belt. These targeted killings have been increasing year over year, and especially now at such an alarming rate that it's hard to see how these militants are not operating with some degree of impunity. Secretary Blinken, since you removed Nigeria from the country of particular concern list in 2021, the U.S. CIRF has recommended Nigeria be placed back on the list, and every year since, and has condemned its removal. The U.S. CIRF has affirmed that government toleration of egregious, systematic, and ongoing violations of religious freedom is the standard for CPC status, and they make it very clear that Nigeria meets at least that standard. Given the horrendous targeted violence in the country that is at least in significant part motivated by religious factors, given these factors, why has the State Department for every year failed to follow the U.S. CIRF's recommendations regarding a CPC designation?
First, let me say this. For us, defending religious freedom around the world is a foreign policy priority. And we are leveraging the global footprint that we have, our presence around the world that we want to sustain, to focus on cases of concern, to push back against repressive, discriminatory laws, policies, and practices. Much of this is highlighted, as you mentioned, in the annual report that we do, and this is at the heart of our efforts. We have in the law designation criteria that we take very, very seriously. We listen carefully to experts in civil society, experts on the ground. Our embassies are doing a tremendous amount of work in each of these countries, including Nigeria. And we listen very carefully to the independent U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom.
But they're wrong. They're wrong in this case.
So in this case, and we have I think we have a different perspective in this particular case about whether, yeah, there's no doubt, it is clear that people of Christian faith in Nigeria have been on the receiving end of terrible abuses, oppression. But whether that is because of their religion or because they're part of a particular ethnic group in a particular region, that's a different question. And what we have not seen is the government of Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria, engaging in these practices in terms of targeting Christians. Having said that, I was in Nigeria, I'm trying to remember exactly when, but I think it was within the last 6 or 7 months. And I brought together experts from civil society, from the religious communities, including a leader of the Christian community in Nigeria, to hear directly from them. We talked to the government about the imperative that even if things were not being done at its behest or its acquiescence, that it take stronger action to protect people, and notably Christians who were, whether or not it was because of their religious status, being persecuted. And so this is something we're very focused on, irrespective of the designation.
I'm out of time, but I would hope we could find common ground at least on the special watch list designation. But I look forward to talking more about this. I yield
Thank you,
back.
sir. Thank you.